Time, time, time. It has change, 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 change. The world is not the same, the same, the same, the same. We must look deep within ourselves, and understand who we are. Because our fate is in our own hands. This is not gospel. This is beginning of the end. The future is not ahead. It is now.
The mountain, crumble, and the seas, plus, the sky, darkens, and the land die.
The cosmos, bleed, and the earth cries tears of rock, and skies, and shelters, but we are not safe. This is truth.
Have you heard? Of course you have. In case you haven't realized, the world is different. Some ask, will it ever be the same? And sadly, the answer is no. The apocalypse has come. Many have died, but many have lived. The few that lived wish they hadn't. Because now they are faced with a struggle. A struggle we call survival. Now, everyone has broken up into clans, and those who haven't are loners, lone wolves, if you will. And they live in the forests, well, what's left of them. They live in places like caves, places that you and I wouldn't dare dwell. Those are the ones you should be afraid of, not the ones in the clans. Although the clans like to take over certain areas, but the ones that are separate seem to plot in secrecy, and they jump when they feel it's best, and they like to slowly tear you apart. So the world itself is dangerous. Can we survive? Yes. But will it be easy? No. We must face every day as if it were our last. Living in this world is not easy. One can only hope the choices they make will keep them alive longer. How have I survived, you ask? Well, let me tell you. The moment it struck, that big chunk of space landed, you could see it streaking through the sky. At first, many awed at its beauty, but as it got closer and closer, we knew. We knew what was coming. The world would be different. So I ran when I saw it. I ran to the mountains. The forest before the mountain was dark and dreary. The trees looked like they were gasping for their last breath. I said to myself, feet don't fail me now, for you must carry me, because if you don't, my time in this planet, this world, would be complete. So my feet digging deep into the earth's surface, soaked with mud, I ran as best I could, even though my feet felt as though they were melting, because every step I took went into the earth. The muck, the mud, swallowed my feet with each step I made. The birds were falling from the sky as I made my way into the top of the hill. I knew that if I made it up there, my chances of surviving the initial crash, if you will, would increase. So I worked my way up, 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 up. A day I will always remember, but will always try to forget. A simple cigar can help alleviate the stresses, but it will never completely erase the memory of that fateful day. After the attack and I saw the destruction, I waited. I waited until I felt it was safe to return. I watched parts of the forest singe and burn away and become dust. I tried not to cry, to feel the effects of sadness, the effects that would overwhelm a person. I knew that this was the fate, that we had to handle it and deal with it as it came. But in a way, this destruction developed my character. It made me realize who I was and how strong I was. I was able to prove to myself that I was no weakling. So for the first few days, I waited. I waited and I waited. Until I realized if I was still alive, there might be others. That the world hadn't completely been destroyed, unless it had been my imagination. That I was in some kind of a virtual world, or that I was in limbo, that I had in fact died. But I knew that may not be the case. I strongly believed I was able to overcome. And that I was in fact still alive. So I made my way down the mountainside. The sky, in its own way, had become beautiful. It had become a mixture of black and purple, a streak of purple spread amongst the sky. It was partially cloudy, I guess, from the smoke rising, but you could still make out a few stars. Stars that were so bright that they could pierce even the darkest, the scariest, and most overwhelming matter in space. It was beautiful in many ways, and yet frightening. I could see a slight shadow following me as I made my way down. Oh, what a fateful day. Each step I took, I felt alive, but dead at the same time. The rush of knowing I was still alive was mixed in with the feeling of fear that I may be the only one alive, that everything that I have come to know had been destroyed. They say that if you put your mind to it and you have an understanding that everything will work themselves out and you would be happy about your circumstances that had befallen upon me, or the person, or whoever was listening to that phrase or memo. But the people that spoke that was before any of this had happened, and they hadn't fully appreciated or understood the actual experience. I made it to the bottom of the mountain, and I saw stumps and ruins of whatever was there. There was a slight red glow on the lower part of the horizon. It was probably some pollutant that had been spread, however you'd like to say it. But I walked, and I saw the torn power lines, the dead bodies of the forest life, deer, birds, owls, what have you, wolves, until I came across a cabin that had looked like nothing had happened, as if it were protected by a shield. So I went into that cabin, and you know what I saw? I saw a home, an abandoned home. Materials were scattered around. Pieces of wood and whatever was in that house at that moment. I raided the fridge for any possible food or water, and I went through drawers to see if there was any articles of clothing that I could use. I felt as though I was lost in the middle of Canada, deep in the forests, and this one abandoned house would be my protection until I slowly faded and died. So I did find some items that I could use, bandages, water, and so on, and I placed them in this backpack that I had found. The backpack was worn and used, and
It looked as though there were some kind of sayings or embroidery on it, and it was faded. It was all completely faded. You couldn't make it out, but it looked as though the person that owned this had been many places and experienced many things. The nights got cold and raw. So I found what was left of a bed, and I found a blanket, and I swaddled it around myself, and I rested. How many hours I spent there, I do not know, and maybe I need not know. But when I slowly opened my eyes, I felt scared, and I wiped the crust, if you will, or the sleep out of my eyes, and I slowly removed the blanket and stepped towards the window, and I looked. It was still patchy and dark. It had looked as though there was a film grain over my eyes, and no matter how many times I rubbed my eyes, it was still there. So I reached for the handle of that door. I turned it, and I stepped outside. And I could hear voices in the distance. I raised my hand to my ear, as if to tunnel the sound into my ear. It sounded like cries or whispers, but they sounded as if they were over here, or over there, or right in front of me, or behind me. It was difficult to place where those whispers were coming from. And if I walked in a certain direction, it would appear as though it was from another direction. So I would change my glance, and I would walk to that direction. And then it would appear in a different area, as if I was being teased or tormented by some kind of ghost or afterlife being. I fell and kneeled to the ground with my hands over my ears. And I thought, this is it. This is what my life has become. And as it got darker, I envisioned and thought and saw red dots, two, in different areas. I look here, and there would be two here, two there, two there, two there, two there, two there. As if they were creatures, demons, or some kind of a wolf or something. Packs of them were watching me, watching to see my next move, to see what I would do before they strike. Was I their meal? Was it the reverse circumstance that I was feeling? Seeing what could keep me alive? As though I was looking for food? They seemed to be looking for food. In my eyes, when I saw a candy bar, I felt This is my temporary salvation. They were probably feeling the same thing, that eating me would be their temporary salvation. So I did not want to bear the thought of staying out there until I became their salvation. So I went back into the house as quickly as I could. I climbed under that blanket and I held it tight. I kept it as close to me as possible, whereas just moments before I barred the door, barricaded it. But nothing happened. I waited and I waited until I slowly drifted off into a slumber. I awoke once more. I had lived to see yet another day. So I grabbed my bag of items that I had collected, and I took off in hopes of returning soon. I went on an adventure and a journey throughout the area. And I finally, after several hours, encountered people. People as though had been lost, or as if I was in the Middle Ages and I came across these peasants, farmers, or people that didn't fight. They had tattered and ripped clothing, and I said to them, "How long has it been?" And they had told me, 2 days. 2 days was all that had passed since the attack, or the destruction of civilization. I told them I had shelter, that they were more than welcome to join me. So, with the strength of my hands, I helped them rise, and I walked with them back to the cabin. How many miles I had moved, I do not know. But halfway through, they fell. They fell as though they were being dropped from the sky, and they were rocks. Their time, their survival had ended. They were dead. Was it a radiation, or was it exhaustion, hunger, thirst? I don't know. So I left them, and I returned to the cabin. I kept walking to that cabin, and their bodies got smaller and smaller. The distance between us had grown. And even though it was against my beliefs, I had hoped that whatever was out there lurking would take them, eat them if it would, and disappear and forget about me. So I went to sleep once more, and when I woke, my door had been marked, as if to either warn me that I am being watched, or to tell me I would be next. I knew it was time to go, and I had to move swiftly, for all I knew, they were following. I came upon what appeared to be a hole beneath a log, a fallen log, and I slid my way down there. It was enough room for myself and a little extra to move around in, and I waited and hid until I saw a shadow. Feet were walking, groups of 4, with claws. I had never seen. These were no wolves, nor bears. This was something else. And I hid, keeping as quiet as a mouse, so that whatever it is wouldn't hear me. And I hoped I did not have a scent for them to follow. So I grabbed some of the dirt around and I rubbed it on myself. I made myself dark, and I covered myself with a hood that I had with me. This very hood to protect me. This was a month ago. This hole has been my ground, my home, for all that time. Will I ever see those feet again? I do not know. Will I ever see the creature that had those feet up close and in person? I hope not. But my wait will continue. I ask anyone seeing this to remember me. I must go now.